All right, hello, rock and
Okay.
rollers. It's the Meister from Brews and Tunes. Cheers. I am absolutely chuffed and honored today. I am chatting with a rock and roll legend, a man who is a drummer who is as equally as important as he is influential to the rock and roll world. And for me personally, so I'm of course talking to the legendary Mr. Chris Slade of so
Hi.
many bands, so many. Hello, sir. So nice to meet you. Yeah, of course, of your own band, the Chris Slade Timeline, and AC/DC, Asia, Manfred Mann's Earth Band, The Firm, Uriah Heep. The list goes on and on. But I'm so very excited to meet you. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. Yeah, good. Thanks. I've
Awesome.
been working hard promoting, doing promotion for Timescape, which is the album we've just brought out, and looking forward to seeing how it sells when it comes out in about 10 days.
Nice, nice.
So on Brave Words Records. So I'm very pleased about that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I've been lucky enough to get an advanced copy of it, and I love it. It's fantastic. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. The Chris Slade Timeline is the band. Timescape new out. It comes out July 19th, as you mentioned on Brave World Records, and yeah, what a great. I mean, just a phenomenal album. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, double album. Of course, you've got original
thank you.
songs on the first CD, and then the second
Yeah.
CD are covers that span your entire career. And just an incredible band you have. The Chris Slade Timeline is what a great band. I know it's been around for a little while. Yeah, I think you formed it in 2012. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's been, well, I can't remember when, but it's been 12 years now
Nice, nice.
that we've been together. So it's fantastic. I love the band. They are so good. They're such good musicians. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
Um, they, the guitarist, James Cornford, and the keyboard player, uh, Mike, um, Mike Clark, have been working together since they were 11 years old in school.
Oh, wow.
And they're 35 now. So they're a very tight unit.
Yeah.
And I took advantage of that, of course.
Nice.
Um, so it's just, I saw them in a pub and they were playing covers of Genesis stuff and Kansas and all sorts of prog stuff like that. And so I knew they'd be able to switch from AC/DC to, say, Asia to Tom Jones, which is what was needed. Needed an all-round musician who could play everything, and they can. So
Nice.
absolutely, I'm really, you used the word chuffed, or I'm really chuffed to be in that band in Timeline. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I mean, it's such an incredibly tight band. I mean,
Yeah.
and you hear that from like the get-go, like that opening track, like it's like, whoa. Like, I mean, you guys come out strong and I mean, yeah, that song Sundance. I mean, you guys, start strong and keep on trucking. I mean, you just cook through that album. It's really cool stuff. Yeah, I was curious about where you met the band, where how you formed the band. It's interesting to hear about uh the guitar player, Mike and the guitar player. But so yeah, what about Paul and the vocalist?
Right. Well, he's known as Bun. He's been Bun ever since he was 3 years old.
Okay.
Uh, Bun Davis. He used to walk around saying Bun, 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 Bun. Everything was Bun. So his uncles and everybody called him Bun, House Bun. So he's been Bun ever since he was born, just about. So you know, it's a bit funny because it sounds a little bit like Bon, but it's not. It's not. Uh, it didn't come up anywhere like that.
Right.
But he sings the AC/DC stuff or type stuff. He also sings Sundance and Back with a Vengeance on the album.
Okay.
Um, and Stevie G is the bass player. and he also sings the Uriah Heep stuff, Earth Band, anything that's not sort of AC/DC orientated, if you like.
Okay, gotcha.
And as I say, we've been together for that long, so we know each other inside out, really,
Yeah.
So musically, so it's a joy every night because we play for like 2 hours every night, minimum, as long as we're given the time, and we often are. And like nobody is disappointed. They don't start leaving after about 45 minutes. They're riveted.
Yeah.
Because really, our show is the history of rock and roll. Of rock music. Generally, I'll use rock music because rock and roll is old-fashioned term. I was a rock and roll player when I was with Tom Jones to start because we were jeans and leather jackets.
Right.
In the valleys in South Wales, and we used to do all sorts of things. Like Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis and everything in between. And then Tom would throw in a ballad or something because his voice was so good back then that and so powerful that he could carry a ballad so easily, and people wanted it.
Yeah.
So he then, when he found his manager, Gordon Mills, he went into cabaret, and I went with him. So I was playing in a tux every night with a bow tie from jeans and leather jacket, So it was a big transition. Yeah. But I was with him for like 7 years. So before he was Tom Jones and after he was Tom Jones.
Nice. Yeah, and you were just a kid when you joined up with him.
I was 19 years old when I was 16 years old.
Wow.
When I joined Tom for the first time.
Yeah, that was 63, correct?
Yes, I was 63.
Wow.
And by 3-4 years later, I was playing Madison Square Gardens with Tom and the Count Basie Orchestra, and we played it for a week,
Wow.
So I was well used to being under pressure, if you like, as a musician and performing in front of thousands of people, which is what you need at AC/DC level.
Yeah.
Because if you crumble, you've had it, you're dead. If you've never done that sort of thing before and there's 20,000 people looking at you, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Because it's such a big responsibility, shall I say?
Yeah, daunting. And that's a lot of pressure. And that's impressive. I mean, especially at that young age. I mean, I don't think there are many teenagers that could handle that amount of pressure. I definitely, I think back when I was 16, there's no way I could have like been playing, with Count Basie in Madison Square.
Well, it began organically, we started in pubs and clubs, and the gigs just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until they were stadiums. So, it was a great education, actually, musical education and education, because I used to read like hell whenever I was on the road, and I was always on the road.
Right. Yeah, it seems like, you've been on the road for 60 years.
I have. Yes, I have. I love it.
Yeah.
Some people, they can't hack it at all. They cannot stand it. I wish I had a beer. I see you drinking a beer there.
Sorry.
I'm going to have one after.
There you go. There you go. Do you have a favorite beer? Do you have a favorite style?
Believe it or not, it's Corona beer.
Oh, okay, nice.
At the moment, I used to drink a lot of Guinness one time.
Oh yeah, got to drink a lot of Guinness.
Especially, and I always drink one anyway when I go to Dublin, because there's nothing like real Dublin Guinness. It's the water. It's in the water, sir.
Yeah. That's good.
And it's the River Liffey, I think, that they take the water from. And that is mother's milk. I
Yeah.
was with a crew guy once in Dublin. It was AC/DC time,
Hmm.
and I had a pint of Guinness in my hand, and I went, and my friend had one as well, and I said, "Oh, that's mother's milk." I said, "I bet that would make a non-drinker drink." And Alan Rogan said to me, "Chris, I don't drink," and he didn't. And he was drinking a pint of Guinness with me.
Nice.
He always had Coke. He didn't drink a lot of alcohol at all. And this guy's been with Alan Rogan was his name. I say was, unfortunately. He was with the Who for many, many years.
Oh wow.
He was legendary in the business as a crew guy. And he's worked with everybody, the Stones, the Beatles, everybody, He was he knew everybody, and he also sold them guitars. He was a guitar collector too. So
Oh, cool.
he used to do that as a business. But he was a great guy, funny guy.
Wow.
So that was just an aside there about drinking beer.
Nice.
But,
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big beer fan.
Corona beer is German beer, really.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a German style lager, essentially. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, it was brewed, first of all, by the Germans that were in Mexico.
Yeah.
That's the history of it. And I think that's a really refreshing beer, to be honest.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Very yeah. I'm drinking a light rice lager right now. So
Ah,
similar
yeah,
style.
Bun is the same. He drinks Corona
Oh,
along with 12 bottles of red wine, but it's Corona.
nice. Uh, so I was curious. I wanted to ask you about. So I know your timeline band. Originally started out. You guys were just doing covers, right? You were just kind of like your career essentially. What
Yeah.
made you decide to do an album of original material?
Well, we wanted to all the time. We were recording whenever we could get in the studio.
Hmm.
We'd record, some AC/DC or some Asia or something. So there's a lot in the can, shall I say.
Oh, nice.
I've actually got it in my pocket these days. You walk around with sticks with everything
Yeah.
on. But uh, so there's a lot of archive, shall I say,
Hmm.
which we can call upon and hope we will in the future. But people kept saying, oh, you can't work with that agency or that, because you're a covers band, you're not an original band. So it took us about 5 years to finally come up with this Timescape CD or recording, whatever you like to call it. And as we've just been discussing, it's turned out great.
Yeah.
And I hope it's going to help us get those sort of agencies and agents and whatever else that helps us. At the moment, we do it all ourselves, and it's been very successful. We work all over Europe. Tomorrow we go to Lyon, France.
Oh, wow.
And we do a gig on Saturday because it takes so long to drive there. And we drive, we don't fly and rent gear. We take our own equipment and we drive everywhere. We even drive to Italy.
Wow.
And we've been there many times. Spain, Germany. Well, we're everywhere. You name a European country, and we're in it. We've also been in the Eastern Bloc, if you like.
Wow.
We were in Poland, just I'd call that the Eastern. It's pretty far east.
It's a
We were
long
in
drive.
Poland just a little while ago, just a few months ago. And we do go to Italy in about 2 or 3 weeks, I think. So,
Nice.
and I love it. I love getting in that van and going. There's something very retro about it.
Yeah.
And that's the way I started, Um, the gear has got a compartment for itself, and we're in the residential section, and it's great. We have a great time on the road. Um, I was talking to Motorhead, Phil Campbell, because we were also born in the same town. Tom Jones, Phil Campbell, and myself
Oh, interesting.
were born in Treforest, which is a small part of Pontypridd. But there's 10 years between all three of us.
Oh, wow.
But he said when they started with Motorhead, they would get on the bus and they talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk for hours. And then he said, then after the first 2 years, we just got on the bus and looked at each other.
That's hysterical. I love it. Yeah, I love the fact that you're still, I mean, you're in your 70s and you're still touring on a van. I think that's pretty cool. I think it's well, there's a song on the album uh that I think is very apropos, living the dream. And you're still living the dream. That's
Yeah,
the rock and roll dream. You're still living
I
that dream.
never thought of it like that, but I was trying to get people to be self-confident and believe in themselves.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of that song. It's like, believe in yourself. Don't listen to anybody else, because there's so many detractors out there,
Yeah.
and they'll tell you that you're crap. Any musician will get that. Oh, you're horrible. Why don't you just stop and be an accountant or something? That the trolls are terrible. And this happened before the internet.
Yeah.
There were still people who would come up and go, you're rubbish. I don't even know why you're playing drums. They still do it.
Really?
So, yeah, yes.
Unbelievable.
And it's like, what band have you been in, guys?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That fill, that's a terrible fill. That's an awful pattern. Why would you play it? Who can play to a pattern like that? And say, how many patterns have you played to, guys?
Right.
Because they don't even know most of the time what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would put their name or something, their real name on it. And often they don't. They just Fred from, the Zebras, whatever.
Right.
So trolls, and it happens, not just in music. I mean, it happens to everything, doesn't it? Like your body shape, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think it's awful, and I wish they would stop, but of course they're not going to. It gives them power.
Yeah.
They feel powerful doing that.
Their perception of power.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's great. I think that's great. And that's the thing I was going to say I really love about this new album is the diversity of the music and the drum patterns particularly. But I mean, I love, like, every song is a very different song, and it's like your career. It's, because that's the thing I've always been fascinated by you as a musician, since I was a kid.
Wow.
I mean, really, I've always really loved your work, your drumming. I mean,
Thank you.
I don't think I realized who you were when I was young, but I knew who Tom Jones was. I knew who Manfred Mann's Earth Band was, but it was really when I was a teenager, and I remember, and it was probably because of MTV with, like, the visual, and I saw The Firm when you were in The Firm.
Right.
And
yeah.
it's like, who is that guy? That drummer is incredible. And then I started kind of researching, and back then it was hard to, we didn't have the internet. It was hard to research, but once I heard your name and I found out, oh, he was in Manfred Mann's Earth Band, one of the original members, founding members, and like, oh, I love this guy. This guy, his drum work is incredible. It swings, because there's jazz in the way he plays.
I'm glad you said that. Thank you very much, because a lot of the trolls go, oh, he can't swing. It's like, do
Oh,
you know what
you,
swing? Do you know what swing really is, guys?
yeah. You swing
Um,
hard. You swing hard. Yeah. That was
yeah,
the thing I always loved about your drum work is that, and not to put down any other drummers and bands you've been in, but um, I still think the Razor's Edge by AC/DC is musically one of their best albums ever, and it's because of the drum work, and
wow.
it's much more complex than other albums. And again, nothing against Phil Rudd in any way, but I love
No,
AC/DC. I love all AC/DC, but that album, the drum work that you did in that album, just it's incredible. It's really, I mean, that's where I really got hooked on your drum work was that album. I was like,
wow.
ooh, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, amazing stuff. Yeah, and the Firm, of course, too, which like for me, that's like the ultimate super group. Bad Company, Manfred Mann's Earth Band drummer,
Yeah.
Tony Franklin, Blue Murder, and Bad Company, Paul Rogers. I'm like, this is like the greatest band ever. Like this is, uh,
Tony was great. Tony Franklin, great bass player, still is.
yeah,
Fretless monster,
yeah, yeah,
he calls himself, and he is. That's what
yeah.
he is.
Well, and I
He's
thought
a nice
too
guy, and
together, yeah, yeah, that's an
yeah,
amazing rhythm section right there.
yeah. Um, he came in a little bit, uh, a few months after we formed the firm, actually,
Oh,
and
interesting.
uh, it was all up in the air. We weren't quite sure what was going on, and then Tony came along, and he was perfect, absolutely perfect, and a great, great musician, you know, on that fretless.
Yeah.
But I'd played with the fretless before with Gary Newman, actually,
Oh, right. That's right. That's right.
with Pino Palladino on bass.
Oh,
Uh, in
yeah.
fact, I gave Pino his first opportunity to play uh, fretless bass. He was a guitarist before that.
I did not
Um,
know that.
and he used to play a double neck like Jimmy Page,
Really?
really. Yeah. And he was in a band with a friend of mine. Well, he's a friend as well, but a friend of mine called John Snowman, who was the singer when I was in Uriah Heep, who
Oh,
is a
yeah.
fantastic musician.
Yeah.
Um, so him and Pino went to school together, to the same school, and they're both incredibly talented. Um, and I'm still friends with, still talk to John on a fairly regular basis.
Oh,
So, he wrote some of the songs on the Uriah Heep thing, on Conquest, and uh, they used his songs afterwards. At least Ken Hensley did, and they didn't put his name on it. Can you
oh, that's
believe?
bad.
On two songs, it took him years to get the copyright back,
Wow.
but he got it back eventually, legally. I mean, um, but he wrote and to write two really great rock songs, and then nobody knows you did it. You know,
Yeah, that's
I
frustrating.
think that's awful.
Yeah.
Um, I really like Mick Box, by the way. He's a very funny guy and a really nice guy, and a really good guitarist, of course.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so I don't think Mick had anything to do with that. I think it was management. Uh,
Makes sense.
so
At that time, I guess, the early 80s. And that was a weird time for that band anyway. I think they were struggling with kind of identity. Uh,
yeah, they were trying to. Yeah, they're still going now.
yeah, which is great.
They're still doing
Great.
festivals and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Mick Fox is, yeah, great, great musician. Um, I sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. I know with this interview, it's just
I
it's
am too. I'm sort of
amazing.
jumping all over the
Well,
place.
you've had such an expansive, huge influence for over such a long period of time. It's really fascinating to me. I mean, and I guess I'm really curious, how did this all start for you? What was the impetus? Like, did you come from a musical family? What started you down this path?
No, Not at all. Although my father was a singer and tap dancer.
Oh, interesting.
In what we used to call a concert party. And it was just a bunch of guys that got together and entertained the miners and the steelworkers up and down the valley that we were in, the Rhondda Valley.
Okay.
And occasionally this guy called Tommy Woodward would get up and sing with them. And my father used to say that Tommy is a great singer, one of the best. I used to go, no, he can't be. He's not on telly. But, that guy, my father was right, because that guy turned to Tom Jones.
Oh.
So Tom used to go with them sometimes and sing the newest stuff. Maybe like Blue Suede Shoes or something, you know?
Okay.
And that's where, it's not where Tom's actually started, but it's pretty close. It taught him how to perform. He used to hang onto the microphone with both hands and sing into the mic, you know.
Wow.
He said that because he was scared, you know. Everybody is when they start. And so when you see somebody hanging onto the mic, you know he's not quite really confident with what he's singing.
Wow. That's so your dad was working with him, or working on the circuit with him. And then what made you decide?
And he was also working in the day, you know, he was working in a factory in the day.
Oh, okay.
They all did.
Right.
They all had jobs. And we, a few years later, Tommy Scott and the Senators, as we were known then, did the same circuits, you know, through the working men's clubs and steel workers clubs. And it was a great education, again, musical education. Because you just, okay, what we're going to do now? Well, let's do 12. Okay, we'll do 12. And whatever 12 was, we would do it, you know. And you just thought on your feet, and you had to play for a few hours at a time. And very little rehearsal time. Like the Beatles when they started, you know, they didn't rehearse a lot. They just went to Hamburg and played and played and played and played for hours sometimes at night, with no money, for no money. Very little money anyway, bit of food maybe. And that was how the Beatles started. I was a big fan of theirs. So that's probably how I started was my brother used to be in a marching band, a street marching band, you know, and he used to play a side drum, and he'd bring it home to be cleaned. And guess who did the cleaning? Me. And there was a lot of brass to polish. And for doing that, he taught me a few licks. So that's where I started, my brother Danny. And so if you don't like my playing, blame my brother Danny. It's his fault.
It's all his fault.
So and then I knew I wanted to be a drummer. I had no idea. I said that to a job seeker once, you know, a guy who put you on the right path in school. And I said, I really want to be a drummer. And he laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. I mean, you couldn't stop him. He laughed his socks off for probably at least 5 minutes, and said, that's not a proper job. You can't get a job being a drummer. I said, well, you know, some people do.
Right.
But he wouldn't encourage me in any way. So he sent me to work on weekends in a shoe shop.
Wow.
And that's how I got with Tom Jones. Because I'd heard that the night before, Tommy Scott and the Senators had sacked their drummer. And one of the shop assistants was there, and she told me, she said, you should try for it. Because I said, no, look, you know, they're not going to want me. And this is where believe in yourself comes from. And I I thought, shall I go and ask him? Shall I go ask him? And there's no time like now. I'm going to ask him. So I walked up and said, I hear you've sacked your drummer and you're looking for a drummer. I'm a drummer and I live by Tom and I got my kit. And I probably said it just like that, like blurted it out. Because I was, 15, 16. He was in his 20s,
Wow.
which was incredibly mature. So the age difference was huge back then. So eventually we got together and they came to my house. My kit was permanently set up in one of the rooms, and everybody came in, the whole band, and Vernon, the bass player, said, "Do you know the start to Walk Don't Run?" It's the Avengers song, I'm sure you know it. I don't know if some of our
Oh yeah, great.
Younger listeners would, but so I rattled off Walk Don't Run, which is relatively difficult in those days. Don't forget it was 60s. And they went, okay, let's go and rehearse. So they on the strength of me doing the start to Walk Don't Run, they each picked up a drum, no cases, just drums. Because I never transported them anywhere.
Yeah.
And we walked about 500 yards to the bus stop, got a bus with the drum kit, got another bus, changed buses at Pontypridd, got another bus to Abercannum where the rehearsal place was.
Wow.
And that included Tom,
That's insane. I'm picturing this in my head. I'm trying to picture this in my head, and that's great. Yeah, Tom Jones walking down the street with a drum, getting on a bus.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
And on the bus, I remember it distinctly. He turned to me and said, "How old are you?" And I said, "Well, 16." And he said, "Well, we're rehearsing in a pub. Can you drink?" And I said, "Yeah." And I could, unfortunately. I could drink at 16. I've been drinking since about 11, unfortunately.
Oh, wow.
Like kids do when they walk around the streets.
Right.
If you can get alcohol, you will get it.
Yeah.
So, we could go and buy a flagon between all of us of cider or beer or something. And that's when I started. And I say, unfortunately, I mean that. Although I enjoy a beer, it can get out of hand, of course. We all know that.
Right.
And to be drinking for so long, I don't drink so much now, maybe a couple of pints a night, something like that. But I enjoy the taste of beer. I really enjoy it, And I love the name of your program.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I love beer and music, so it's my two passions.
Me too. So
Yeah.
yes, it's a good passion to have, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's just so wild. That's such a cool story. Like, yeah, you guys, yeah, I mean, it's amazing to think like that young and like getting in the scene at that time, and this is, I mean, like the Beatles were still just coming out. I mean, it was it was such a revolutionary time in terms of music, especially in
It was.
England, in the UK. And
It was.
yeah, just that's incredible. That's really cool.
And and then Sandy Nelson, Let There Be Drums came along, and that everybody's ears pricked up, including people who weren't interested in drums. But I met him a couple of times before he died, unfortunately, and he was a very nice guy, Sandy. I used to live in Vegas at the time, and he was in Boulder City. He used to live in Boulder City.
Oh, okay, not far.
Yeah. And no, not far at all. And I used to go. He still used to play in this little bar. And you know, they had a band there, and they used to play just about every night, I think. I don't think he played every night, but he would sit in sometimes with them. And he was a very nice guy. So then I met Sandy Nelson, you know, and that was a big tick to my life.
Yeah.
Because he started me off. And also not just me, but people like uh also God, um Cozy Powell
Oh
was
yeah. Amazing
started
drummer.
by Sandy Nelson. And there were so many others got kicked off by Sandy Nelson into a career who are still professional drummers, you know?
Yeah.
So thanks for that, Sandy, wherever you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Great drummer. Amazing drummer. Yeah. That's really cool. What I was curious about so you know you played with Tom Jones for um
7 years.
yeah, I was say that was quite a while there. Yeah, up until I guess it was when you joined Tomorrow with Olivia Newton-John,
Yeah,
very young, unknown Olivia Newton-John, and
yeah.
then a couple of years later was Manfred Mann's Earth Band. How did you get together with Manfred Mann? How did that all come about?
He phoned me at home and
Oh
he
wow.
said somebody had recommended me. Would I be interested in forming a band? It was only me and him at the time. I said, yes, of course. Manfred Mann being a big name, you know,
Yeah.
from because Manfred Mann in the 60s was, you know, the pop band,
Yeah.
and they had something like 20 number one hits in Britain or something like that. It was a huge number. Uh, and they were thought of as like the Beatles, you know.
Yeah.
And the band took Manfred's name because Manfred was a bit off the wall then, but he's from South Africa, you know, so Manfred's not so strange there at all.
Yeah.
So you know, it's his real name, and um, it's just he just called me and said, "Are you interested?" He said, "I know a guitarist. Do you know any bass players?" And I did. In Colin Pattenden, who was the bass player for what 5 6 years with Earth Band, and that turned out to be a 7 year project too.
Yeah.
So I was I was really pleased, but it was a very creative time. Earth Band, everybody, the whole. I used to write lyrics when it was necessary, and that's when my writing started, but never melodies.
Okay.
Um, so this album came as a real shock. I can write melodies, you know. It was a real revelation.
Nice.
Um, so I sometimes wrote the bass line, you know,
Oh,
and the
really?
harmonies and everything. Because I can't play an instrument, um, a musical instrument. And now we can have an argument about drums and musical instruments. But I hum quite well.
Nice.
Yeah. So I could go, and I'll say to Mike, the keyboard player, you sort that up, mate. Tell me what you come up with.
That's great.
But I did know how to construct the song. I did know how it wanted to go and where it wanted to go. Um, and I think it's still there. You know, you get that inspiration for a while and then it goes away. You know what it's like. The inspiration is what's the word? Ephemeral. You know,
Mm.
it's not solid. It's something that and sometimes I think that I get inspiration when I'm starting to go to bed at night.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I keep my phone close to me so I can into it, you know.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that. Yeah, because I mean that was a thing that I always loved about Manfred Mann's Earth Band was just, you know, those melodies and those harmonies. And it was such an intricate, like every album is so intricate and interesting. And And it was a very different sound from, the 60s Manfred Mann, which, the pop, the
Yeah,
English pop band. I mean, it was a much more progressive, and it
yeah,
was time, it was the early 70s. Well, up until, I guess you left in what, 79, right? I think somewhere.
something like that. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
Um, Manfred wanted to disband the band.
oh,
He wanted to retire. That was his story. So we disbanded, and we did other things, and everybody went off. But we've been hugely successful
yeah.
in that Blinded by the Light period. Um, so then 2 years later, Manfred put the band back together.
Oh,
Wouldn't you know? Um, and he wanted to retire, so he got fed up with sitting on his couch watching TV. So he started a band again. He's still doing it now.
yeah.
88 years old.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's still going. Yeah, but I mean, of course, you had moved on and done other things. But I did before we move on from Manfred Mann. I have to ask you this because I'm really curious about. I remember reading about this years ago. The Good Earth album,
Yeah.
where the when it originally was released on vinyl, it came with a deed that you could
Yes.
get land in
Well, you were
in
co-owners of the land in Wales.
in Wales. That was
Yeah.
fascinating. Like, who came up with that idea? That is fascinating.
I can't remember who came up with the idea. Um, I really can't. But the whole thing is that album cover is a deed. You
Oh,
don't need, that is the deed.
oh,
So
okay.
you own like I think it was a square foot, was it, or something like
Yeah, it
that?
was a square foot, but you had to register it, I think. So,
Yeah. Well, I think it was all done. We had a lawyer draw it up properly, so that
wow.
is the deed. Um, so people who bought it and sold quite well
Yeah.
own, are co-shareholders in that land in Wales. You can't do anything with it. Um,
So it
and the
still
mineral,
stands today as,
yeah, uh, that is the reason that the red kite, the red kite, um, bred a bit more and spread further. So it's
oh, that,
now there's a kite. There's red kites. They got like a V-shaped tail. They're
yeah.
wonderful birds, and they can be huge too. Um, and they were on the way out. Excuse me. So that helped them breed, and it was a great uh, task to help them to survive, and I'm sure it helped other birds as well.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
really
was the good.
cool.
The thing was called the Good Earth, um, and we thought, well, that's a good angle. Um, so there are a few songs about that, and it was a great project to be involved in, and in a way, we were before our time,
Yeah.
because now everybody's on that bandwagon, to take care of animals and make sure. There was a thing on tonight about the white rhino in
Oh,
um, in Africa, and there's only about 150 left apparently. So they're breeding it, and they're you know giving it its habitat. Well,
that's cool.
we did that in the 70s. I know other people were doing it. We weren't the only ones. Um, but it's more prevalent now. People know what you're talking about now,
Yeah.
taking care of the planet as well. As I said, you can't do anything with that land. It's just you're protecting that land.
Yeah, that's
If you've
beautiful.
got that album sleeve, you are still protecting that land.
That's beautiful.
So it's a really nice thing. We didn't buy the mineral rights or anything like that. So there's nobody can get rich by mining it or something.
Nice. That's cool.
So it's a really nice thing.
Yeah, that is great. Yeah, that was like you said, that was 1976. That's really cool. That's really cool. I love that. So yeah, you left, so the band broke up, and then that's when you joined Uriah Heep, or shortly
Yep.
after. So 80. And then I know like after Uriah Heep, like in the early 80s, you did a lot of gigs or, played with a lot of musicians like, Gary Newman and David Gilmour and, I mean, list, Mick Ralph and, all these amazing musicians. And then it was shortly after
Denny
that.
Lane also. Denny
Oh
Lane
yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah. Denny
part
Lane.
of that
Oh
for
yeah.
2 years.
Well, what a great musician. Yeah. Like, yeah. Rest
Yeah.
in peace, Denny. Wow. Wow. And he was,
And who else? I'm trying to think. Darling, the song Darling. Frankie Miller. I did an album with Frankie Miller.
oh yeah, that's right.
Um, and these opportunities just, they just came along. People say to me, why did you do that in your career? Why didn't you go and play drums for like Led Zeppelin or something? And they're serious,
Yeah.
and they don't understand that you can't just walk up to somebody. Excuse me, you Jimmy Page, aren't you? Can I play in your band? Well, we've got a drummer. He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you ever get the chance, I wouldn't mind playing with you guys. Yeah, okay. Leave
Yeah.
your name in that waste paper basket, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, people don't understand,
right.
that, and it's like, why don't you come to Poland, say? They don't understand. You've got to have an invitation from Poland first. You can't just walk up to Poland. Excuse me, Mr. Poland.
Yeah.
Uh, can I do a gig in one of your clubs? Which one should it be? They
Yeah.
think you've got a choice.
Right.
That you just because I don't know. They just think that's the way the
Yeah.
music world works, and
Yeah.
it don't.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to deal with promoters and there's a lot to it. It's a business. It's a business. I mean,
Yes.
as much as we as fans want it to be just art, which it is, of course, but there's also a
Yeah.
business side to it. I mean, it's a very different, it's crazy. Yeah.
And
And you guys
journalists used to
survived.
say about the firm, they used to say, "Oh, they called the firm because they're in it for the money." You know, then after, as if Jimmy Page needed money. You
No,
know?
especially at that time. No, yeah, no. Yeah, how did that
uh,
come about? How did that band come about? Yeah, that was
um,
84, right? When you guys formed?
yeah, I'm trying to. Oh, I got a phone call from Pagey.
Hmm.
Uh, but before I got that phone call, I got a phone call from David Gilmour
Oh,
on the same day,
wow.
asking me to play drums with him. And I said, "Oh, Dave, I'm flattered, and yes, I'd love to do it. But I'm with Mick Ralphs in his band." And he said, "Oh, that's okay. Mick is doing it too." So that became the nucleus for the Gilmour band,
Nice.
and that's a fantastic time with Gilmour, just wonderful. I was with him for a year on a bus all over the place, all over the world.
Nice.
Um, and he's a great guy. He really is a tremendous person. Um, and unbelievable guitarist, as we all
Oh,
know.
yeah.
But he's a genuine guy, and you know, what you see is what you get, and there's no tricks with him or anything. He's very straightforward
Yeah.
and very smart too.
Yeah. He always
I
seemed
mean,
very down to earth to me.
he is incredibly down to earth. Um, Calls a spade,
Yeah.
and other things. You just don't think of Dave Gilmour perhaps swearing, perhaps. Ooh, dear. But he does,
Oh, I'm
like
sure.
all of us. That was a tremendous time. So then I got that phone call uh, before I worked with Gilmour, and he said, "Yeah, I'd really, Mick Ralphs is doing it too." So um, I said to my missus then, I said, "Let's go down the pub, as you would." So I went down the pub, hour and a half, came back, had lunch and all the rest of it. And phone rings, pick the phone up. it was Jimmy Page, yeah.
Wow.
I, I, I said, Fred, I know it's you. You're winding me up, aren't you? You know, I thought a mate had, a mate had heard about Gilmour, so I thought a mate was winding me up about Jimmy Page. But he went, no, 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 no. It really is Jimmy Page. And me and Paul Rogers are putting a band together, and we'd like you to play drums. And I thought, honesty is the best policy. Jim, I can't believe it. I've just not 2 hours ago said yes to David Gilmour on a tour. Oh, that's all right. Well, and I thought, well, that's the end of that. You know, how long are you going out for? Well, it was 3 months was originally talked about, and he said, oh, that's okay. We'll wait.
Cool.
Take phone away from head. Look at phone incredulously, and then put it back. And he said, yeah, we'll wait. We'll wait. Just let us know where you are and what you're doing, which I did. But they waited 10 months, maybe a year,
Wow.
for the Gilmour tour to come to an end.
Thankfully.
And they kept waiting, which is amazing.
Yeah. That's great. Because I mean, that album, well, both albums, but yeah, I mean, that's magic. I mean, right there, that Firm album, that's magic. I mean, the four of you together, I said it before, I mean, ultimate super group for me. I mean, that was just pure magic listening to that.
Thank you. It felt really good recording it. Honestly, it did. We Timeline still do a couple of songs from the Firm.
Yeah.
And people come up to me all the time, almost every night, and say, with one or other of the albums, to say, this is my favorite album of all time.
Yeah.
You know, that's including Zeppelin or whatever, you know. I can't get my head around that, but they do, I promise you. They like yourself, you know, but they don't say, I like this album. They say, this is my favorite album.
Yeah. Love this album. Yeah, it's pure magic. It's incredible. Yeah, I wish you guys had kept doing stuff, like.
Yeah, me too, definitely. And Tony, we were going to get back together again. The Firm were going to get back together.
Oh, wow.
But this little sort of unknown band came up again, Led Zeppelin, that's it. They got back together again and did a show. You know, I was at that show, by the way.
Oh,
nice.
It
was tremendous.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you guys think you would ever, at this point, do you think you would do anything? Do you think the Firm would ever do a show?
I don't think so now. It's a great shame, but I can't see that happening now.
Yeah.
I wish it would. I really wish it would. Yeah. I think Pagey stopped working completely.
Yeah, I don't think he does anything. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And so it's always hard to go back though. And we did 2 albums, which ain't bad.
Yeah.
You know.
Great stuff. Yeah, and the cool thing is you're continuing the legacy with Timeline, so that's cool.
Yes. Yeah. It goes down a storm because it's so moody, you know, as well on stage. I talk about satisfaction guaranteed, you know.
Yeah.
And there's many others that are just great songs, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great stuff. I would imagine.
I was amazed. Tom Jones did a Firm song.
Really?
Yeah, he used to open his show with it as well, and he recorded it. Which was it?
Oh, I have to look that up. I didn't know
the
that.
The opening track, I think.
Oh, cool.
And I can't remember the title right now.
It's
if you told me.
Okay, now I'm blanking. It's oh my gosh.
Da 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 da.
I'm on the spot. I can't think of the title. Oh my gosh.
No, and I can't. And I played on it.
Yeah. But
I never
that's cool.
to,
I would love to hear Tom Jones doing that. I would love to hear Tom Jones doing that. That's fascinating. That's really interesting.
Yeah. He used to open his show with it because I went to see one of his shows once and he opened with that. So I thought it was pointed right at me, mate.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I would imagine, speaking of that and all that, like for timeline for your time, it's got to be tricky with the amount of music you've done over 60 years, like picking titles, like coming up with a set list. I would imagine is
Closer. It's called Closer.
what's that? Oh yeah, close. Yeah, yeah. There you go.
Closer. Yeah. Set list. Yeah, I've done it all my life, and I sort of know what I'm doing now. You got to pace it properly because
Right.
with two singers as well, you got to get the balance right between the two singers. You can't have more of one than the other.
Yeah.
Although one of the singers plays bass, um, you've got to have the balance between the two singers.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they become unhappy. And it's quite natural. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
They don't. He's singing 5 songs. I only got 2.
Right.
We never got to that point. But going back to set lists, it's been my responsibility in the band, I would write the set list out, and it's always wondering, what comes next? What's the next song that fits with this song really well?
Yeah.
And that's the way you go about things. It's got to be entertaining. You still got to entertain people. And that's in my blood too, I think, because of my father, probably.
Right.
So there's a lot to do in sets. You don't just stick 10 songs together and go, oh, we'll play it like that. You got to think of everything. The mood, the key. You got to get the key right. If it sounds strange when you come out of one song and go into another song, especially on an album, when that happens, it can be nice sometimes if it clashes or something. But you've got to think of all that stuff, and thankfully, I'm able to.
Yeah.
Still, at the moment, anyway.
Well, I was going to say that with the new album, I think the sequencing of the album is really on point. I think it's a really well balanced, like it really works. Both CDs, both the covers part and the original music. I think it really flows really well. I think you did a really great job with sequencing that album. And I
Well,
think,
thanks.
like you said, the balance.
It came. I had to try a lot out, to be honest. I had to put them together in this order, then that order, then what if that was first and what if that was last, and all that. So it was really good. It was obvious to me that the End of Eternity had to be last, and which made Time Flies the last but one. So I thought that worked really well. So that was always planned to be like that. And the start was, I thought we got to get a Bun song in there, with Bun singing. So I wrote that, and that's why I wrote that, because I needed a song that Bun could sing. So I thought, right, it needs to be up tempo, it needs to be this, it needs to be that. And that just came out of the blue, and it magically came together. It was just so organic.
Nice.
And the way the ideas came, it's like, okay, I need a brass line here. What can that be? I want it to go ba 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 ba. Oh yeah, that'll do. And and that's the way it happened. What will the strings do? Oh, and that was strange too, putting strings on a rock thing.
Yeah.
And thankfully, it came together, as you say, and I thank you for that, because I haven't had much feedback.
Really?
Yeah, not a lot, not at the moment. I've had people say I really like it, DJs and people like yourself, and I'm always surprised. Like I was surprised by you saying that today, and you've heard it and you think it's great.
Yeah.
That makes me feel really good. Of course it does. But it's more a confirmation of the whole process being correct.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. It's
and
very,
nobody yet has gone, well, it's well, it's a bit this, it's a bit that, and the analogy of the Earth Band thing came to me. It's I thought myself, it sounds like an Earth Band album.
mm,
Um,
yeah, it kind of does. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm very pleased about that,
Yeah. It's very
because I think we
richly.
had something going. Earth Band had something going back then.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very richly textured. There's a lot of nuance to it, which I really enjoy. And then that second CD with all the covers, that's just brilliant. I mean, I was actually, I had to do a double take, uh, especially with the AC/DC covers. 'Cause I seriously thought it was Brian singing that. Like I was
Right.
shocked. Like when I'm
I'll
like, oh,
tell
that's not
I'll
Brian.
tell Bun.
Yeah,
Bun
it's
will be very pleased. So am
yeah,
I, actually, because
yeah,
we do shows and people go like, "What? Who the hell is that?"
yeah. He
I've
sounds
never
like
heard of him.
Yeah, he sounds like Brian. He nails it. He's incredible. I mean, the whole band, like I said, is incredible. But yeah, I really love this album. I think I'm excited for the release. Um, yeah, and again, that's uh coming up on the 19th. So
Yes,
yeah, not too
Brave
far off.
Words, Brave Words Records. Yes.
Yes, very cool stuff. Well, Mr. Slade, Mr. Chris Slade, thank you so very much. This has been an absolute pleasure and an honor, truly, truly, to chat with you today.
Thank you very
And
much. I've
yeah,
been really enjoyed it. I really have.
thank you so
Um,
much. Yeah.
I'll go and have my brew now.
Yeah, yeah. And for those of you watching, look in the links below, in the description below. There's links to Chris Slade's timelines. Buy the album, comes out, yeah, on the 19th of July. Killer stuff. So again, thank you so much. This has been great.
And thank you for your comments and everything and this opportunity.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely. Thank
We
you.
must do it again sometime. I
Yeah.
hope so.
Oh, I will love that. That would be dream come true. Yes, definitely.
Cool. Okay.